to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash,
unbiased, unfiltered, and utterly unafraid. That is the game.
and Dale Hummel.
The strongest weapon in the United States is a patriotic American.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, I posted a video on Facebook yesterday.
Here we go.
Early in the week. We're recording early in the week today. And I couldn't believe what I saw. I guess I can believe it, but the fact that for those that have not seen the video, which is most of you, because Facebook refuses to allow that to go out to our followers. It has been released to a couple hundred, maybe. I don't know how many, but not many. And I continue to get upset over these things. And Facebook probably continues to put me closer and closer to being in jail again. But a mother riding a bicycle and a young child on a scooter going down the sidewalk, there's an American flag sitting in somebody's yard, just a small one stuck in the ground. The kid on the scooter tries to grab it on the way by, and it doesn't pull out. So he stops and pulls the flag out and throws it on the ground. While the adult, assumably his mother, is watching and visiting with him. I don't know if she's encouraging. She darn sure wasn't discouraging it. But these type of acts maybe open my eyes a little bit to just how bad it is out there, Ryan. And it's concerning. You're
concerned over the child. You're concerned over the mother. You're concerned over Facebook.
I'm concerned over the mother, and I'm concerned over Facebook. And I have a hard time blaming the child. The child is nothing more than a product of the environment. But the fact that we have people out there such as that, and then not only Facebook but social media, obviously they own Instagram as well. They've gone as far as restricting and banning anything that is anti-vaccine, anti-COVID vaccine online. You post something up there about that, it's jail time for a very long period.
Well, that's why Trump is suing them.
Yeah, and I hope he gains some ground. I have no idea whether he'll get anywhere with that, but it's time. And I'm a big fan of less governmental control. But when we have a monopoly on social media like we do, and it's playing such a huge role in our life, including Google, and I can throw Amazon and a few others in there, that we have to do something. And I don't know what's the correct move, but we can't allow them to continue to manipulate and foster their opinions and restrict anybody else's the way it's been done. And I would go elsewhere. I would shop elsewhere. I attempt to shop elsewhere. I would not use Facebook unless I thought, I call it a necessary evil at the moment, but give me an option and I'm there.
On this whole social media nonsense, you can take away my Facebook, my Instagram. I'm going to get very upset if you take away my Snapchat. I'm just saying.
I honestly don't know who owns Snapchat, but it appears as though that is wide open. Would you agree?
I'm just saying.
Do they pull anything off Snapchat?
Nothing of mine yet.
Then they're not going to pull anything, assumably. What about TikTok? Completely wide open as well?
No, I think they're getting a little censor-esque, but not bad. Not as bad as Facebook, but a little bit. But have you heard about your sister Camel Toe?
I hear about her every day. I happen to see her on the news, but fortunately she does nothing.
So her latest thing is we can't have voter ID laws because us poor rural country folk can't make photocopies of IDs.
I did hear that. That seems to be a sensitive point for some.
Yeah, this woman.
I don't think she has any grasp of the real world at all, Ryan. I really
zero.
I just thought she was unintelligent, but I think she's unintelligent, sheltered, naive, ignorant. I could go on for quite a while, I think.
I don't know what the percentage of people in America are that have a smartphone or a computer, but if you have a smartphone, you can take a picture of your ID, email it somewhere, and print it off.
Yeah, their neighbor has a printer that they can print. People can make it. If they can get to a voting station, they can make a photocopy. They can find a way. And I'm not saying everybody has those means in a home to do it. I understand that. But a neighbor, a friend, a relative, there's going to be a way to get a photocopy. Period.
Evidently, no, not so much.
No, that's what I hear. That's what I hear. And I hear she's going to do. She made a statement. She was going to become more involved in the border issue.
Oh, now.
What that means, I have no idea.
We're at least over 100 and something days that she's supposed to been. She was tapped to
Yep.
fix the border issue, and she went to El Paso like 100 days in, which El Paso is not really the border crisis.
It's
hotspot.
not the center point by any means.
But now she's going to get more involved. Well, that's good. And then also, which I know you watched a lot of the CPAC of it all. I did not. Been a little busy. But I did hear that when they voted for who needed to be president in 2024, guess who won 70% of the votes?
Up from 55% in February from Florida.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty impressive, isn't
That
it?
would be Trump. Mhm.
It would be.
70%.
And there was a second place that came in at 21%. And then,
DeSantis. And then nobody else got jack.
no, and then you've got, I mean, Nikki Haley, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul. I think Tucker Carlson even came in. Kristi Noem was in there.
Oh, Tucker would be a great president.
But they were all down at a very, very nominal number. But Trump just gathered them all. And DeSantis, I mean, I would say, considering how dominant Trump was, that the fact that he set himself that far apart from all the others is interesting. Now we are looking at the most conservative group of people in the straw poll there is in the country. Would you agree with that?
So,
No, I'm okay. I'm good with that. I'm just making an observation that that's probably not a true poll of the base, not say the base, the average Republican in the party. I have no issue with it whatsoever.
I'm going to say this now, and I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway. I'm going to make a prediction. I think Trump is going to ask DeSantis to be his running mate, and that's a terrible idea. But
No, there's no question he's going to do that.
I think he's going to do that because, and I will give you my reasons why. I think it's perfect for DeSantis because it gets him in the spotlight, all this other stuff. And no matter whether Trump wins or not, if he wins, he's vice president 4 years. He's logically going to roll right into running for president the next time. And if Trump doesn't win, he got a lot of press. He was out there. And again, it sets him up to be the nominee the next year. And why Trump is going to choose DeSantis is, I believe, he will then put the squeeze on DeSantis to make Ivanka his vice presidential candidate.
Oh, you went way out there. You went another level.
Yep.
I can see that happening. I can see them even discussing it now.
No, it will be like the art of the deal man will broker the deal now. I mean,
No, I would agree completely, and I'm not, and it may work even. I don't know. I think if he brought a female on,
I think he needs a woman. I said he needed to dump Pence
and I'm a
last
fan
time.
of DeSantis.
Oh, I love DeSantis. I'm great with him, but I think he needs a woman.
So we're strictly, for those listening, we're not saying that DeSantis wouldn't make a great vice president. We're saying that
Well, I
he's
think he'd
maybe-
make a great president, vice
Yes.
president, all of the things.
he may not, if Trump is at the top of the ticket, he may not add as much value to the ticket to get the election won.
Because he's already won Florida both times, people. Just putting that out there. So I think he needs a woman, but he's not going to do that. So that is my prediction.
Unless something goes way off track, I think that's done already, in my opinion.
What else did Mr. Trump have to say at the CPAC?
He will not answer that question directly if he's running, but he'll say everything he possibly can, that he's made his mind up, that he basically says yes, but for some technicality, I don't know what it is, there's a disadvantage to saying that he's running right now. And I don't understand where that is or what policy or rule that he's trying to make sure to not violate. But there is something there preventing him from saying, yes, I am running right now.
He's having those rallies, though. Again,
He is. And that at CPAC, they did come up with it. They wanted to find out the three largest concerns of those at CPAC, the conservative side.
oh, what are they?
Voter ID.
Oh.
I'm sure that was obviously going to be there. And Trump pushed that one hard when he spoke. Constitutional rights, I think that one is a given. It's always there. And the southern border. Those are their three largest concerns. And that's very all-encompassing. I mean, that takes care of a lot of the problem.
And other than the voter ID, the other two, they were handled when Trump was president. I'm just saying.
They were handled as well when Trump was president as anybody that I've seen in that office in my lifetime.
Yeah. And so
there is some rumbling that President Trump, being the character that he is, the person that he is pushing the next generation of Republican candidates out of the race, not even allowing them to present themselves. I don't know that he's doing it intentionally. It's just the nature of the beast.
that's not his fault.
No.
But then now, so we've got this new strain or version of COVID or whatever. So did you see that, like, I think it was Pfizer is already put out there that people need a booster, and now Fauci's all in on this and whatever. Why can't we get rid of him?
I don't know. I don't know why he's not in jail. And we've covered this in detail. I really don't.
Do you know how I think Trump wins the presidential election? Is he says the day one he will fire Fauci. I mean,
I think we should go further. He will throw him in jail for treason.
God.
That's where I'd like to be. Speaking of treason and some issues.
Oh no.
You know where I'm at with China and Russia, right? We don't have to pretend that I'm on their side. Yes.
Yes.
Between January 2020 and January of 2021, basically the year of Rona, correct?
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese virus. Chinese exports increased over 40%. Do you think they benefited from the virus a little bit?
No, not at all, Dale, you conspiracy theorist.
No, I found all these numbers on my own. I dug several sources up that happened.
Imagine that.
And guess who's buying these goods and products?
Us.
Primarily, it is U.S., the European Union, Japan, Hong Kong, which they don't have a choice, South Korea, Taiwan. Taiwan, again, is pretty much under Chinese rule at this point, and Australia. So if you take out Hong Kong and Taiwan, who are now just you might as well, even though they're opposed to it, they are under Chinese rule, in my opinion. But Japan, a lot of the European Union, in South Korea, as well as Australia, those are pretty strong allies in general of the U.S. And if we could bond together, and we could look at it this way, Ryan, we're not going to go down the path of biological warfare. Are we going to develop a virus that's going to wipe out the genetic genome of the Chinese? We're not going to do that, are we?
I would not think so.
No, I don't think even with this administration. So we've got the biowarfare, we've got the cyber attacks coming from Russia. I don't think this administration is going to unleash. I think we have the ability to. I think we could crush them in a cyber war, or at least defend ourselves very well and inflict a great deal of chaos in China and Russia if we chose to. Is this administration going to do that? No chance.
I don't think this administration's doing anything.
No chance.
What about
anything? So we're not going to go back and fight back from a cyber warfare. We're not going down the biowarfare path. If we ever were to engage in a military conflict and China and Russia decided to become military allies, and I think they're already there if it comes to us, we're in deep trouble. So there's a lot of things we are, with this administration, we are not going to do. In the military conflict, thing's probably not the best idea at the moment. With that said, there's something very simple. If we could bring half of those allies that I mentioned that are buying the majority of the products from China on board, we shut down buying anything that we possibly can. I'm not saying we can shut it all off, but shut it off is feel the pain. We're shutting it off so hard in our supply chain. Buying products from China, Australia, Japan, South Korea follows with a few of the countries in the European Union. We could strangle them. We could bring their ability to be a world leader down greatly if we simply did that. That avoids biowarfare. That avoids all the immoral things. And again, we're not against the Chinese people. And would this hurt the Chinese people? I'm sure it would. But I see no other alternative. If we could simply do that, I'm making a personal choice to do it as best I can, and it's hard. But that would take care of it. The biggest problem that we have with this is you see it right now, Ryan, in the supply chain, ordering a trailer, ordering a vehicle, anything you do, there's an issue with the supply chain of something not getting here, usually because it was made in China, and we've slowed that down some. And the fact that our administration, Mr. Creepy Sleepy Joe and the chameleon in the White House, their policy right now with giving the unemployment bonus checks out, even though a lot of the states are now not accepting them, normally, capitalism, our small business, would pick up any of those gaps. If there's something not being available, a small business steps up and does that, and it's wonderful. It explodes in terms of the economy in the small business world. It creates wealth. It does all of these things, but you can't do it right now because a small business person cannot hire people. So there's a huge issue here. And guess what it all comes back to? Ignorance in the White House.
Well, speaking of the economy and ignorance in the White House, funny you bring that up. So I did see, and again, like, I'm going to apologize to our listeners because I'm in the middle of like a 31-day stretch of judging shows all across the country. So my news...
Don't apologize until day 18. Remember, that's the key day.
Whatever. My news watching is going to be a little limited. But I did see an article the other day that said that Biden's highest approval rating was March, which was like a month and a half after he took office, basically, and it was 59%. He has now down to 51%. And the reason that he is down, obviously, it's because Democrats are unhappy with him. And the main reason they are unhappy with him is the economy.
I would agree.
Because what has he done besides ruin it? That's it.
I think the gas prices alone, and hold on, we're just about to go into where we're going to be importing a great deal of fuel again.
I don't think the gas prices are like not. I mean, I think they're going to get worse.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think they're already over $3 everywhere, and it's going to get worse and worse. And if you even get me started on the Keystone Pipeline versus the Russian pipeline feeding Europe that he approves and shuts, I get so angry, Ryan, of the ignorance. And it's almost like he's single-handedly trying to destroy this country, the decisions he's making. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I'm not trying to blow it up or anything. I'm just looking at the absolute facts, and it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why a person would do this.
This is evident because of the media. They're not bashing him, but they also aren't singing his praises because he's done nothing to praise other than eat a lot of ice cream.
And they're finally starting to throw some questions. I'm not saying hard questions, but at least questions that are relevant. They're starting.
Did you see the question that somebody asked him, what would you say to Putin or whatever? And like he just rambled and babbled and nothing. And
I saw the one where we mentioned last week that is this a test from Putin, and he just walked away. Didn't even want to address it.
I mean,
well, what do you think? Putin is a very intelligent man. I do not like him.
Yeah.
But he's highly intelligent. He understands the game, and he's thriving at the moment.
He knows he has a moron.
Yep.
This is the leader of the United States and supposedly the free world, but poor world.
There was one other thing I was going to try to bring up, and it's amazing to me. The CDC just came out with some guidelines, and I received a recording from our school last night.
Oh, Lord.
I did call you over it, didn't I?
Yeah, you were the most angry.
So the CDC comes out with a recommendation. Remember, these are recommendations that this fall, school children of any age need to wear a mask if they have not been vaccinated. And they talk about the science behind it, and this is how we get this under control. For the most part, and I did a little bit of research, and I read a letter from the Illinois Board of Education, and they state science tells us we have to do this. And it's nothing but inaccurate lies, Ryan. The chance of these children becoming ill or spreading COVID-19 or any variant of that is so minimal. And the disadvantages of them being in a mask socially and everything that comes along with their development socially, and the fact that I can't understand why they would do this. But the teachers union came out as soon as the CDC came out and recommended. They're all over it. They're not recommending this is how it's going to be. This is how it has to be. And I noticed one school board in the state of Illinois stood up to it, and they've been reprimanded. They're not saying how it's going to happen, but whether they're going to pull funding or whatever they're going to do. So their school board unanimously said we're not wearing masks, and that the state is coming down hard on them. It's a situation that's hard for me to even believe. I believe during my lifetime or in my lifetime, Ryan, there's never been greater ideological divide between the left and the right. We're further apart than we've ever been. The right views freedom as an absolute. The left views freedom as something the government gives us and completely controls. It's a joke. Look at what's going on in Cuba right now. They've got peaceful protesting against communism. Look at Venezuela. You've got those two countries that I think the people kind of see where things are, but the fact that China and Russia came in long, long ago and infiltrated both of those countries, they may not ever be able to get to a democracy or see the freedoms that they see in the United States and other places. It's a sad situation. And we're going down that path. You want to call it socialism, you want to call it communism, I don't care what you call it. And what they say, whether they are or are not going that direction. We are pushing socialism as hard as I've ever seen it. And it appears as though that average person out there walking down the street either doesn't care or has no idea.
The most.
Well, I'm done ranting. I apologize.
Okay. Next.
Main topic.
Yes.
Should we talk about your brainstorming, or should we just pretend like I came up with this one?
You did not come up with this. No. This is so Dale has this thing that he thinks that I can control the way my mind works. I do not. If I could control and knew and understand how my mind worked, then I would rule the world. But I just don't. It just happens. And so I did have like an hour on Saturday where I came up with 22 topics.
Okay, now let's go back just a moment. Now, I've asked you many times, Ryan, just sit down and come up with a bunch of topics. Just do it. And you refuse.
It doesn't work that way.
And then all of a sudden, 1 hour, my phone's blowing up, just absolutely blowing up, one topic after another. And you're right. How many did you come up with?
22.
We're good. You did the math. We're good for 5.5 months.
That's right.
It is appreciated.
But here's the problem. I came up with 22 topics, and Dale will get rid of half of them. He'll be like, they don't want to hear about that.
Most of I'm good with. I'm going to say that with the majority of them. I don't even know that there's one that I could toss out. Other than I think we've covered one or two of them indirectly, like the consistency one. I think we should do it, but I think we kind of went over that pretty deep when we had Mr. Scott Grinder on many episodes ago. But anyway, no, we're loaded with topics, and we have a good one for today, Ryan.
Yes, we do.
Show ring condition / finish across species. Is that how you wanted to title that?
Perfect. Lovely.
In other words, you're going to talk about animals being too fat, too lean, too much finish, too much condition. We're going to talk condition and breeding animals and finish and market animals, I assume.
Yes.
Excellent.
All the things.
I would like to start with cattle, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
And would you like to begin this?
All your heifers are too fat.
I wrote down fat, and fat. That's what I had at my little thing when that came in. My text came in last night. That's the first thing I went to. Right underneath it, I copied it and put it in my notes so I wouldn't lose them, Ryan, because I do lose some of your topic ideas. And right underneath, I just wrote down heifers, fat, and fat. I love cattle that can maintain themselves on grass with minimal feed inputs. But in our show ring, I don't think that that's the case. I think we're probably feeding bushel baskets of corn in general and pushing as hard as we possibly can energy levels to get them very fat.
Like, I don't know when it got this bad, like how it got this bad, what pushed it to this level, but like, I'm going to say something that is very unpopular here and will be unpopular probably, but I'm going to tell you that from a Dale loves this form to function type of whatever, if you're going that way, like trying to make this show ring scenario fit in the real world, then I'm going to say 90% of the heifers are too fat. I'm going to say that even in not doing that, I would say it's way over half that are too fat.
It's up there, Ryan. It seems like we want to start with the body type of a dairy animal, and we want to feed them as hard as we can feed them to put a little bit of thickness on them because they have no thickness. They're big bodied, they're long, freaky necked, which I'm good with those things. But we have no muscle and no skeletal width, nothing in these dairy cattle. They're bred for a completely different purpose. Dairy cattle are for milk, beef cattle are for meat production. And the last time I checked, meat production is muscle. When we take a dairy animal body type, we have to put a lot of fat on them and then probably some hair. And then it's kind of a stretch. Are they even thick enough at that point? But I promise you that we're out of control. If we were to peel this fat off many of these females, some of which are getting along very, very well, you would be sadly disappointed on how little muscle they have and how many things fat is covering up, how many problems. That smooths everything out and patches up a lot of things. And that's maybe being too critical, because some of those are pretty impressive, especially when fit and managed really well. And I respect the people's ability to fit and manage like that.
And the reason I wanted to bring this topic up is not just because I think heifers are too fat, but like when I'm out there judging, like a lot of times people will come up during the day or after the show and say, hey, you said this about my animal. What does that mean? And I would say over half the times that someone comes up and asks me something, I have said, we got to rein this one back in terms of condition. We've got to, all this. Like, they don't understand what I'm talking about. Like, I'm like, well, your animal's too fat.
And you're trying to be a little more politically correct with the terminology that you're using.
Right. Instead of just saying your animal's too fat. And they're like, oh, you think so? I'm like, yeah, I think so. And it's all species. Like in a hog, I'll say this one's a little greasier sided than what's ideal. All that they don't get it.
I'm like you, Ryan. It's interesting to me. I'm just not sure when it all happened. I don't think it was overnight by any means. And I want to be perfectly clear. I like easy keeping cattle that convert grass efficiently. I like a more moderate cow size. I like low maintenance cattle, and the ability to put on fat out there in the pasture is a very good thing. And that is not what we're talking about whatsoever. And I also appreciate feeders, managers, all of those people that are involved in feeding these cattle, because there is some work and there is an art in getting these animals to look a certain way. Even though we peel that fat and that hair off, we may be a little disappointed with what we have.
I'm glad you started with cattle, because what I find so crazy about all this, all the heifers are too fat, and I would say a large portion of the steers are underfinished.
I think you're probably right, and let's talk about the steers.
And I know why the steers are underfinished. It's because we're giving them all these things to make their muscle enhancer. It's burning the fat off. It's real simple. I get it, but like, how can you be this far apart?
And I think the beta agonist and it's for the most part ractopamine, if some are using that, and it is legal to use on the steer side, if the show doesn't put a rule in that states they're not allowed. But from a USDA, FDA standpoint, it is ractopamine is legal to use in cattle, and that is going to burn fat, and it is going to increase muscle. So I think, Ryan, there's a lot of different grids out there, and you're not going to like this. I'm going to talk about the commercial world just a little. So we have grids that determine the price of an animal. When you ship a steer to market, or heifer, or a market calf, that animal is going to be hung up. We're going to take certain measurements, whether it be quality grade, yield grade, or other individual measurements that particular packing plant wants to take. And there are grids across the country. Some reward premiums and pay more for extremely fat cattle that have a higher level of marbling that likely go into the restaurant trade. Others are going to hit maybe the supermarket trade, which is kind of where, and I'll talk about it, kind of where I think we are in the show ring. We want to hit that small zero marbling, which means low choice in our quality grade, with a yield grade 2, where we're still muscular and we're still going to have a lot of edible product. And then we have some that we used to have Laura's lean beef, and I'm not even sure that still exists. I assume it does, but there are others that have jumped in that we're going to pay a premium for lean product. We don't want any extra fat on them whatsoever. So from a judge's standpoint, you can go out there and say, okay, if you give me this scenario, we're going to this packing plant or that. You could justify a lot of different things. I think in general, the consensus is, and Ryan's not going to want to talk about the specifics on it, but low choice, yield grade 2, and then make them a show calf is where I am at. I don't know that we need to make it a carcass show by any means, but there's enough good cattle out there that are show cattle that can hit those parameters from a quality and yield grade standpoint that, hey, let's do it all.
Like, my thing is, I do want to tell a funny story though, but like a long time ago, and I really can't remember who I heard this from. It was the guy on Mike, it was Judge Mark at the Steer Show, and he said that was talking about the finish on one of them, and he said, but you know what? It's okay, because great cattle judges make those steers great handling, because we just don't have to talk about it if we don't want to. I was like,
there is a lot to that.
I was like, oh my God. But when I am sorting and handling market steers and all this other stuff, so I don't have a crystal ball out there, Dale, and neither do you, and neither does anybody else. And so I can't tell you what's under that hide. And also your choice yield, what all that lovely nonsense that you just talked about, that marbling is what decides a lot of that, sir.
Correct. That's
Okay.
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but marbling is inside the muscle tissue.
Exactly. And there is a very strong correlation between subcutaneous fat, specifically rib fat, and marbling.
Okay.
It's not absolute, but there's a very strong correlation.
Right. Again, no crystal ball. I can't tell you what that looks like under there. All I can do is tell you that and marbling is also highly correlated to genetics, by the way. Highly correlated to genetics. That if genetics allow, I can tell you if there's enough subcutaneous rib fat on that there, if the genetics allow, that thing should be able to get one of your lovely little grades that you love so much.
I would agree with that completely.
It's very, very strange to me that we have these heifers that are the majority too fat, and I can't tell you how many, and it doesn't matter what level a show it is. I would say that the majority, like a greater percentage of the steers that I have handled in a market show are underfinished. And there's a small percentage that are way overfinished.
No, I would agree completely. And isn't it interesting, Ryan, that generally speaking, you think, well, we'd have the steers fatter than the breeding females, but
no,
it's the absolute opposite right now. Opposite.
It's so strange.
Do you want to know something that's very unpopular?
What?
When judging a heifer show, if I feel one is very fat and fit very well, excellent hair, excellent presentation, all those things, I will approach them and handle them from a standpoint to confirm where I'm at, to make sure I'm not making that mistake. And how well do you think that goes over?
Is this a Hummel family?
It's common sense. Why would you not want to put your hands on one if you're pretty sure this one's way out there but fit well and disguised well? Just put your hands on them. It takes 2 seconds to know where they're at.
It's easy. Have to put your hands on it to know.
I think it's a good confirmation. And guess what else it does? It gives that exhibitor and those behind that one probably a better idea that, yeah, maybe we are a little too fat.
I think there's something in the Hummel family bloodline genetics or something that makes you all want to like make people angry. Because your nephew, when he handles hogs, like people flip out. Y'all are just rude.
And I don't feel like I need to handle those heifers to confirm how fat they are.
Exactly. So why do you do it?
What is wrong with it?
It's just tacky.
I don't know, but you're right. People are not usually very happy, and I think
It's
part of it
just
is I know
tacky.
if I'm going up to handle one, they suspect that's probably why. And when I'm handling
I
steers,
tell you what, Dale, the next time you see a woman that's overfinished, you go put your hands on her and see what happens.
agreed, that probably would not go well. Now on the
No.
steer side, I'm not only handling obviously for uniformity of finish and get an idea where they're at, but I enjoy just handling that muscularity, the ribeye shape, and that top, and it's enjoyable for me to allow that to play a role, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, I handle the top too, but I guess more than any other species, I do think that like the cattle are so far apart on
Yes.
this, like more than any other species. And so we probably spent too much time talking
No,
about
that's
the
okay,
cows
because it's gonna relate to the other species.
because they are so far out.
Ryan, do you ever handle just not the top and the rib? Do you ever go back and tap on the quarter or the lower stifle area?
No.
Okay, just checking. I have.
Why?
I just get concerned just to make sure they're real.
Oh my Lord.
You don't want to go down that path, do you?
I'm just telling you, when we judge these shows together, there will be none of this. Thank God they're jackpot shows and not market shows, because I will tie your little hands together.
Would that
sir.
not be the most fun? Wouldn't it be?
No.
Oh,
no.
it would
I
be.
thought you were going to ask about grabbing the flank, and yeah, I do that. But
Yeah, I'll do that occasionally. I get kicked once in a while, but occasionally.
but tapping on their ass, you don't get kicked. Okay, next.
No, we're fine. They're good. Are we good on the? I think we've turned the cattle inside out. We're good there.
I think so. Yeah.
Let's go to sheep.
Okay. That's the second group that they're too fat.
They are, and there is a large divide. We talked about the steers being leaner than the females,
And people get mad at me in sheep shows because I tell them all the time their sheep are too fat, and they're too fat.
They are, and we're not just talking the breeding sheep, but the wethers as well. But let's talk about breeding sheep first.
I would say of all of the market species, that the sheep are too fat constantly. But anyway, go ahead with your little breeding.
You're right. I'm good with that, and I have a rant to go on the weather side, and you're perfect. I think in the weathers, Ryan, you're right. Of the market species, they're easily the furthest in terms of being out of bounds and too fat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. In the era that we're showing weathers, they're as fat as they've been in my lifetime, no question in my mind. To the point that these ones that are winning shows today, Ryan, a lot of shows. In the 90s and early 2000s, they would have not been accepted.
They would have got dismissed.
They would have. Think about that fat one in that judging contest that used to go last. Oh, we're so far past that right now. And the same thing in the show arena. I don't hear a lot of judges talk about sheep being too fat. I'm not saying it doesn't happen.
Well, I do. And then people tell me that I'm from Texas and it's different in other parts of the country. I'm like, I don't think so, sir. Don't blame this on me being a Texan.
I hear that same thing. I really do. On a positive note, back in the 90s and early 2000s, we maybe had them a little bit too lean where the packing plants did not want to buy lambs from shows because their shelf life was so limited. And when I say shelf life, that fat insulates the carcass so it doesn't dehydrate. And if we don't have enough fat on there, that carcass dehydrates and becomes of almost no value. We do not have that problem anymore with our show lambs. We're way beyond that at this point. So we don't have to be concerned with that. However, guess what, Ryan? The Packers still do not want to take these lambs out of our shows.
Because they got to trim them too much.
I can go further, but yours is more politically correct.
Go further.
You really want me to?
Go right ahead.
Well, when we talk about the show lambs and getting Packers to take them, do you remember? I can just, for some reason, Houston pops up. They'll tell you what the price is of market goats and market lambs that they're buying. Is it considerably lower than what it is in the real world?
I didn't know that, but that's good to know.
It is. A lot of the shows, I'm going to say we're at half the value when somebody's sitting at that show and buying those lambs or goats out of there. And it comes back to the unethical, non-approved products and practices that are being utilized by some to gain that competitive advantage. This topic's probably better left for another episode, but needs to be addressed today just briefly. And when we put that much fat on these animals, and specifically, let's talk about a wether sheep, and I'm not excluding the goats because we've made a lot of bad progress in that area as well. But when they get them that fat, when they're implementing some of these unethical practices, the fat allows these mistakes to be more forgiving. In other words, it covers up a lot of the blemishes, a lot of the issues that may be there. And when I talk about that on the goat side, in this past year, we've progressed on the unethical practices at record pace. It's a sad situation. The fact that parents are allowing such practices to get that win. I don't know if they feel satisfactory or if they're less concerned about getting called out, they have a better chance of winning. In other words, if they're not worried about getting caught for some of these things, they're probably going to have more success. So you can ask those same parents, is this about their ego or need to succeed at something? Or is it about building life skills for their children? And this is all going to come up in our unethical practices episode, and we're going to dig deep into it and how this relates to the wethers and being too fat. It's kind of part of it. It allows more things to happen without the judge noticing. How is that for transparency, Ryan?
Oh, there you go. Well,
and they are too fat. There's no question. We're trimming a lot of that fat off. It's a little beyond. But I tell you what, just like in the heifer ring, that fat smooths everything out. It makes them look a little bit wider, a little stouter. There's a lot of reasons we put it on there, and the feeders are good enough that I talk about how sheep never handle as hard today as they have historically for various reasons. Some of the unethical things, and some of it is just simply the amount of fat that we have on them.
I'm just saying, when I talk about lambs being too fat and all this stuff, and then they come out, well, that's because you're from Texas. That's bullshit. It's not just because I'm from Texas. Your lamb's just too fat. And I do have a funny story. So you were talking about the fat lamb in the judging contest.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of my favorite stories ever. So we were like brainwashed for a month that there is no such thing as the fat lamb in Kansas City. I mean, like literally.
That used to be a given that for some
I
reason
mean,
in the
like,
contest they would never throw one away.
Literally, we were brainwashed to the point that we get to the Market Lamb Class at Kansas City. And I want to preface this that saying, like, back then, the coaches could, like, be up in the stands and, like, all this other stuff. I think that's changed now, but they could be. And so I get there and I'm looking at this and I'm like, that lamb looks very fat. And I go around the front, I'm like, ooh, that lamb looks really fat. And so then I put my hands on the, I'm like, this is the fat lamb. And so I'm like scanning to see if I can see Dr. Skaggs, because if I'd could have, I would have literally rolled my eyes at him, like to the point that they would have fell out of my head. By the way, I found the fat lamb. The rest of my team, not so much. So
they followed their coach's instruction. They did nothing wrong.
Yeah, I think one other person on our team got the fat lamb, and we ended up 10th, I think, as a team. It was great
because of the lamb class.
Well, no, we did some other things bad. There was some other hiccups along the way, but lamb class did not help by any means whatsoever at all.
No, and we're throwing fewer and fewer away today for being fat. It just isn't happening like it once did. And on the breeding sheep side, Ryan, we have what we call the slick shorn classes, or the slick shorn sheep, and then the fit or the frame sheep. And when we put wool on these, and these frame sheep are giants, and Ryan and I have talked about this a few times, giants. Their physiological maturity is not going to allow them to get fat at a young age by any means. It just doesn't. So they can feed them as hard as they possibly can. There's some amazing fitters out there that can take that wool and do more with that than we can with hair on cattle. So they can sculpt and carve and make them look like almost anything they want. But I think it's still in their advantage to try to get them fat to make them look thick enough. Shorn side, I don't think it's any different than our slick shorn steers. When we have a slick shorn steer, we're getting them fat because we can't cover things up with hair. If we want to drop the flank, if we want to give them a little more balance, it's usually fat, isn't it?
In terms of the breeding sheep, I just don't think I run into nearly as many that are way overdone, overcooked on that area as I do in the heifer side. But yeah, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely correct. That a lot of times between hair and condition, that's what people use to like mold animals.
Correct. And we're getting better at it every year.
Oh yeah.
And I think some of the slick shorn sheep are probably fatter than the wool sheep or the fit sheep, because they don't have the wool on there to hide it. To smooth things up, we have to get them a little bit fat. It's just how it is.
Without a doubt.
So I think we've made enough friends on the sheep side. Would you like to go upset the goat world? But I don't know that we're going to hear a lot different in the goats.
I don't think we're going to upset the goat and the hog people nearly as much as we've upset the cattle and the sheep people, because I'm just going to lay it out there on the goat side. In terms of market goats, very few. I think overall, as a species, goats may be the best. Like, I think
we're closer to being correct in that.
I mean, like, I find very few instances in terms of weight, and it would be, I guess there are more goats that are too raw than are too fat.
I would agree with that. And I think, Ryan, the fact that you're judging a lot of lamb and goat shows, when you come out of that lamb ring with handling as many fat ones as you do, the goats, it's refreshing that you get into the goat ring. And there are some fat ones. And I think, Ryan, we are in a trend in the goat side. We're allowing a little more all the time, but we're still not even close to where the sheep are. Not even in the same window.
No, I just think as a whole, and I mean, hogs are pretty close too, but on like the market deal, when I judged goats in Virginia a couple weekends ago, I don't know, they're all weekends running.
On day 18 of your trip?
Yeah, whatever. Shut up. Next. Anyway, when I judge market lambs and judge goats, I don't talk about handle unless it's really, really good or something's wrong. Because it's just repetitive and dumb, and there's so many other things that's not the only thing that's whatever. And so somebody said, you don't talk about handle much. And I said, well, because unless it's just like, this is dead on amazing how they're supposed to feel, or they're something raw, too fat, I don't think there's any reason to bring it up.
No, I would agree with that, Ryan. And I liked it when I'm handling the sheep, to me, or goats, but in the sheep side, most of them have enough muscle on the top end that I'm considering and using at the top end of a class in most shows. But I'm handling to just, I'm hoping to find that perfect touch, that perfect hydration, just where we want to be without being too fat. And then obviously you bring that out when you find those. But I'm with you. I don't know that we need to try to break down those minor differences. But if one's way out of bounds, bad or good, I guess you could say, then sure, bring it up, talk about it.
Now, on the female side, of course, I don't do a lot of like, when I judge breeding goats, it's more like weather dams and stuff like that. I don't, do the breed shows and stuff like that. So I don't have as much experience, but now you can get those girls a little porky sometimes. I'm not gonna lie.
I think we're in the breeding side on the what we call the full bloods or the ABGA shows, and the percentages even. We've made them similar to our breeding cattle, our heifers. Maybe even taken in another direction. Bigger is better, and big and fat wins. Put a little hair on it, even better yet. But it seems like to me when I look at those shows, and I'm very biased because I'm very weighted towards the weather side of it, but it appears as though weight, size, whether it's fat or not, good hair is going to go a long ways. But we really miss the boat on skeletal build and structural correctness. Just big and heavy seems to go a long ways.
I guess that's what the interesting or the oxymoron in the goat deal is. I really do think that they're just like pretty on point in terms of market, and then the female side, we're a little out of bounds.
We're almost as separated in the ABGA versus weather dams or weather side of it as another species. There's no overlap. It's a complete divide between those two segments. So I think that's what it stems from.
I think you are absolutely correct on that. And so now we have made those people the most angry.
Do you think, Ryan, and while we're talking just across species, I think one of the reasons to get fat on, or the reasons, and I've already stated it, but I believe it to be correct, we put fat on them, we make them question maybe that's some muscle, and we as a judge we're thinking, well, maybe they're thick enough, and the fact that it smooths everything out.
Yeah, no, those
would be the two most logical reasons.
Those are the two reasons that people intentionally get one too fat. But I think the problem is, I think there are people that are very talented with a feed bucket that can get away with that. And so other people see them do that and they think, oh, well, we can do it too, but they can't. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
I do. I completely understand.
Oh, they do it, so we can do it. And no, it doesn't work.
Just does not work.
And so I think that's why we have a problem in some species with animals being way overcooked. But then I am going to, unless you have more on the goat side that you need to rant about, sir.
No, the only thing, and it's not goat side. If we look across species, whether we're talking about the does being too fat and the heifers being too fat in the show ring, again, I think it's good from a form to function, commercial standpoint, whatever you want to say. If they could truly grow and perform and put on body condition under limited feed resources and convert that very efficiently, I'm all in on that. I appreciate that. And maybe that's the pretense that we have in our mind when we go out there, but we all know that these show animals are not in any form of commercial management situation whatsoever. And that's not why they're too fat, because they're too easy doing.
The hogs, and I'm just going to give a huge shout out to all the hog people, because I believe that the hogs are the best on both ends. Like I even though I think maybe the market goats are the best market in terms of having it right on handle, I think that between market and breeding sides, the hogs have the most together, the most correct, the least offensive either way.
I agree completely. Ryan. I couldn't agree more with that exact statement. And there's a couple reasons for it, I believe. And we're further from the extremes right now in terms of extremely lean hogs. What, the early 90s, where we could count the ribs, and I mean, you just starve them out.
Those were scary.
They were, and you know what? I remember liking them. I'm gonna confess, I thought that was pretty neat. To those really, really little fat hogs in the mid 80s or early 80s. So we've been way fatter. We've been way leaner. I think it's interesting. We always seem to go past that medium or that balance, but hogs have kind of reeled in a little bit, at least from a finish or body condition standpoint. And we're in a good place, but it's amazing to me what these hogs are probably carrying for fat, but because there's a great deal of effort put into it from a fitting and feeding standpoint, a skin and hair standpoint that Ryan talked about earlier, a lot of these things probably disguise how much fat is on these hogs better than what we want to accept. Is that possible?
That's why Cade handles them.
I'm not sure why he handles them, but we could bring him on and ask him about that.
You people, y'all are just the most offensive.
I told you exactly why I handle the heifers. It's more a fact to confirm, wow, this thing looks really fat. I'm going to just see how fat she is. So I think you're right, though. At least the appearance is. Now,
from an aesthetic standpoint, I think that the hog people have it going on.
I think they're dead on. I'm great with where they appear. I'm going to use the word appear to be in body condition, but the key word here is appear, because those feeders are good, Ryan. I mean, they are really good. And when you start doing those things, I can remember long ago, and this was going to bring my nephew Cade up.
The hog people followed the science.
They do. Cade had a really long-haired, scruffy blue butt barrel that was going to the Illinois State Fair. I mean, we're talking 3 inches plus of hair. Back when and hogs were clipped long ago. This would have been the late 80s, maybe somewhere in that mid 80s range. I don't remember exactly, but nobody had been clipping hogs for many years for the most part at that time. So we knew this hog was worthless if we didn't do something with him. So we went ahead and not that I'd ever clipped a hog prior to that, but we clipped him, and it just completely changed this hog. And I think that time the judges weren't really looking, was just assuming that they were clipped. This was the only one, to my knowledge, in the entire show that was clipped. And he was just a fat, good built, decent balanced hog, but he was fat and he was pretty narrow in general, in terms of real muscle. He looked the part once you got done blocking him out. He had so much hair. Goes on to be medium weight champion at the Illinois State Fair. And at that time, they would kill all those hogs and give you carcass data. 1.4 inches of back fat.
Oh my!
That at that time, that was way, way fat.
That was completely unacceptable.
It was, and he was called lean and shapely and all those things, and it was just because of how the hog was clipped. But at a time when others weren't, so you just weren't suspecting it. Yes, I don't know how. You're more naive as a judge to it at the time. But I'm thrilled with where both the gilts and the barrows are on fat. Just I think they're as close to where they need to be. We're not too lean. We're not too fat. It's there. That's an easy one, isn't it?
I agree with you in terms of the fact that, like, what we see visually or how they appear aesthetically is probably not, if you kill them all and hang them up, it's probably not matching as much as we think. But I also think that, like what I was making the funny comment about the hog feeders follow the science, I firmly believe that feeding hogs correctly, show hogs, is more of a science than any other species.
It's evolved into that. It definitely has.
Right. And I think there are so many ones that are talented at it, and more than any other group. And so kudos to them for that.
No, absolutely. And they do a phenomenal job of it. Now, if we can just work on those front toes and front feet a little bit, we'd be good, wouldn't we? We're going to get there.
We're trying, Dale. We're trying. I mean, I think it's only me and you, but we're trying, my God.
We're trying. Remember I told you that show in California was a little deeper in shavings and out on grass with shit, and how much easier it was?
You loved it because you couldn't see the front feet. See, I know how you are. You're just like, I can't see the front feet, so therefore it doesn't matter.
I could see the really bad ones. Just the small differences were harder.
You could still see the way those front legs roll and bow and do it. And so if you wanted to, even though the shavings are deep, I know you could still read it. But
it was a lot easier just to go.
I know how you are. It's your world. We're just living in it, so it was fine. And I am just glad that you had an enjoyable experience and you like judging hogs again. So there you go.
It's all better now.
It's all
Well,
better.
this was a really good topic. I hope that others enjoyed this main topic as much as I did, and I think Ryan has. But it's good. And again, we're not trying to offend anybody. We're
I try to offend people daily. I'm not
trying to offend
I try
anybody.
to offend people daily.
But I do think it's good just to talk about these things, and it's interesting how we all of a sudden have breeding animals fatter than market animals, and we have so many oddities that we evolve into for whatever reason, and even when it exactly happened, we're not exactly sure. But this is where we're at today, and good, bad, and different. That's where we are.
Yep, absolutely.
It is your favorite time. Remember the response we got last week from question and answer.
Okay,
they thought you were the gay hero of the world.
Before we go any further, if you submit questions, and I don't see the majority of them. I did see that one last week, but if I 95% of them say, if you're going to submit questions and they're dumb, you're going to get a bitchy response. So to that lady, I'm sorry that you're angry, but that's how it is.
Maybe you just took it differently than she stated it.
I don't care.
It was a very popular response you had, by the way.
Well, I'm just saying.
Very, very popular.
Next.
Okay, we're into question and answer. Since it was so popular last week, I've got like a dozen of them.
Oh, great. And I have seen none of these, so that's lovely.
And again, Ryan did not see that one from last week because I showed it to him. I think he might have been on the message. I can't think it came in through Beyond the Ring Messenger.
Either that or, I don't know. I get all these notifications that come up, but I really don't read them. But I saw something, I like the beginning, why somebody, and I was like, Anyway, next.
Kendra submits a question. My children just started showing in jackpots this year, but have shown at a fair for a few years now. My daughter wanted to enter our county fair's sheep long dock competition, and I docked it accordingly. We have shown that lamb all summer and have had mixed reviews. Ryan, you actually judged it this summer in Wyoming. And we thought you did a great job and really enjoyed it.
Okay.
For the most part, the lamb was placed middle of the pack, and I think that is appropriate for the lamb, regardless of his tail. However, she has had some judges place her lower, and one even told her she ruined the lamb due to the tail. Next year, she was hoping to show one of our Polypay lambs. How would you dock that breed?
I don't know.
Don't look for me to bail you out on this one, pal.
I don't know.
I don't know either. For those that don't know, I think the long dock thing, I know in California there for a while, and maybe still is, they regulate that you can't dock too tight for fear of prolapse and other issues or animal welfare issues. I wasn't aware, to be honest with you. Here we don't have something called long dock competition. Ryan, do you have anything like that?
I have never heard of it before, and I've never judged one, so I don't know. I mean, obviously I judged a sheep, but it was just in a market sheep deal because I know the show because I only judged once in that state this summer. But yeah, I did on what she's asking about. I don't know because I don't want to say something and it not be correct. So I think you would have to go to that breed association website or email them and ask them what the proper way is, because I dang sure don't know, and I'm not going to give out misinformation like Biden's press secretary.
I think that's we're going to circle back on this one. I bet our listeners will send us some messages, and maybe by next week we could answer that question a little bit better. But I do remember some big heated issues in the state of California years ago on just how short we're allowed to dock these tails. And again, from a commercial standpoint, we'd never dock them as short as what we do to make them look a certain way for the show ring. And it probably is impractical. It probably is not an ideal from a health perspective, but Ryan, it does make them look better, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I'm going to say, yeah, pretty much.
Next question comes to us from Amy. Not sure if this is the right place to ask a question, but can you tell me why it is kids in showmanship are now putting their hand on their leg or rear pocket? And this is in swine.
Yeah, I don't know. It is happening more than what it does. And I think the free hand in pigs and goats, because most times sheep, very few times are people, I mean, you have some that lead them with one hand or whatever, but most times it's two. But like the free hand in goats and pigs, more now than ever, I keep bringing it up in showmanship that like it's the way some, and it's all different kind of deals, like it just needs to be more natural than what it is. And putting your hand in your pocket is not natural. And like laying it on the leg, yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. But like I'll never forget in Kansas this spring, there was several kids in the goat showmanship deal that they all had their free hand like in a fist position, and it was like up by their face. And I was like, I think you look like you're gonna hit me. And it just wasn't good. I'm like, just keep it natural, keep it by your waist, whatever. So yeah, I understand what this person is saying, and I don't know why that is. But if you have a free hand in any, even sheep, my opinion is, if you've got a free hand, the more natural you can keep it, and I would say like waist level would probably be best.
I think so. And I think it's just that uncomfortable not knowing what to do with it when one person sees somebody else do something like in the pocket on their leg or up closer to their head. I think they just do it because they think, well, that person's doing it. Maybe that's what I need. It's an uncomfortable situation. They don't know what to do with that hand, that free hand.
Yeah.
So good question, Amy. Thank you. Matthew submits the next one. What is the weirdest cattle breed that you all have judged, meaning not heavily bred in the U.S.?
Well, I mean, there's several. I've judged Wagyus before. They're not shown much, but yeah, I've judged those. I mean, I don't consider belted Galloways weird, but
probably less of them out there.
They're obviously not a mainstream popularity.
Correct.
So
I had a chance when I was in grad school to go judge a Murray Grey show in Canada, and at that time there just weren't very many out there. Period. And that was a little bit different for me.
I have judged Murray Greys before.
Yeah. And what about Alaska State Fair? I believe I judged. I don't know what if you could say judged it. They had a couple pins of yak.
I've not judged a yak.
Whatever that would. I don't know if I don't even know if they fall into the cattle realm or where they play a role in. But yeah, Ryan has not even given me any of those American shows to judge. Any shows with American breeds that I would so love to judge, Ryan.
Okay, so he put it out there. All you American cattle people out there, Jail wants to judge your breed.
Yep, form to function.
I'm not saying this is a good idea, but he wants to do it. So
we have one more question. We're going to cut back from 12.
Okay, that's nice.
A young man from Indiana submits this one. What do you do with your dirty clothes while on the road for 31 days?
It's so funny because it's such a wreck. Literally, I put up yesterday, so the problem now is, before Rona, the bitch that she is, almost every hotel that I stayed in had dry cleaning. And so you just took it down there in the morning, back in your room by 5, 6 night. It's lovely. Now no hotels have dry cleaning. I do not understand why. I do not know. And
not even just regular. I'm not talking starch, but not just regular dry cleaning.
No, they have nothing. They have no type of dry cleaning services anymore.
Right, they don't have somebody to pick the cleaning up and take it to the dry cleaners. They don't have the employees to do it.
Evidently, that's it. But they just tell me Rona, and so I literally put up yesterday that I need a dry cleaners, and so I'm going to go after this. But I was on the 22-day stretch before this, and no joke, like you'd find cleaners, and it's hard to find starch outside of Texas and Oklahoma. I'm not going to lie; it's a little challenging at times. Or what I consider starch. Lots of dry cleaners put starch in. That's not starch to me. But I sent a box of clothes home to my parents and just said, take these to the dry cleaners so they'll be ready when I'm whatever. And I will do that again. I think I figured it up on the 31-day stretch. I'm actually judging 25 days. I don't have 25 pairs of jeans to judge in. I may have 25 pairs of jeans, but not.
How about 25 of those high dollar ass shirts?
Oh, I do have way more than that.
Okay, so do the math on that, Ryan. How much you've spent on those?
We're talking about what we're doing with my clothes, not what they cost,
Got
Dale.
it.
And so I will have to get jeans starched and cleaned and all those good things while I'm out on the thing. Because again, I've got way more than pair than 25 jeans, but a lot of them are more fashion type jeans that have holes in them and stuff like that. They're not appropriate to judge in. So, but yeah, I will go to the dry cleaners and several times throughout this, and I will send, like, because I'm not going to rewear these shirts. When I get about halfway through, I'll send a box. I'll go box them up and send them home and tell my mom to drop them off at the dry cleaners for me, and away we go. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem now more than ever. I mean,
So it's actually a pretty good question.
yeah, absolutely.
We didn't talk about the underwear.
Well, I mean, making me giggle. Anyway, if you follow my Snap, then you've seen this anyway, but I do not normally travel with the carry-on because I just don't. But because I am gone for 31 days and I have so many bags, and I don't even want to talk about my bag fees because Dale would just fall out, stroke, and have a heart attack. And so I did have a bag that I could make a carry-on, etc. And so I flew from San Antonio to Houston and Houston to Columbus. And I have this little carry-on, and it has socks, underwear, my laptop, those things in it. Well, I get off the plane from San Antonio to Houston, and because I don't take carry-on, I forget it. And it doesn't even register on me that I left my carry-on on the plane till I got to Columbus. And then it registered with me that I left it on the plane to Houston. And as I said on Snap, I could replace my socks really easily. I could replace my laptop. It would be expensive, but I could replace it. My underwear, not sure that would have worked out real well. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but like, my underwear are very expensive and they are not sold in stores. Like, you have to order them from the designer, etc. So that was going to be a wreck, me being without underwear for 29 days.
This was a terrible idea to go this far.
You the one that asked about it.
Terrible idea. Terrible
You were the one
image.
that asked about the underwear.
You cannot go to a store and just buy underwear.
And not be happy with it. No. But anyway, thankfully, United Airlines flew my bag from Houston to Columbus. I picked it up last night. We're all good. As long as I don't forget it on the rest of my flights.
That's pretty good from the airline standpoint. That surprises me a little bit that they would get that.
I was
done
the
that
most
well.
thankful, and I am a big United Airlines fan, but I have never been such a big United Airlines fan as of last night because I was really concerned. And Dale, you're the one that brought up the underwear situation.
I did.
was not even bringing it up, so don't even.
It
go
was
there
a
with me.
mistake. I want to circle back and make sure everybody knows that was my fault. It was a mistake.
There you go. So,
Well, Ryan, I appreciate this great topic that you came up with and the other 21 that we'll be using here in the next 5.5 months. But it was enjoyable today. Until next week, be safe.
y'all come back now. You hear?